Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of our 2026 BGANZ webinar series titled Where Your Health Grows. We had our first webinar last week, and this is our second one, and I'm very excited to be back in the chair hosting this series of webinars that will be taking place every Monday night, as you know, across the month of May, which is a beautiful thing that we have deemed May to be Botanic Gardens Month as the perfect lead into Botanic Gardens Week, which will be kicking off May from the 18th. But of course, we'll get into more of that as this talk goes on and as the month continues. Now, it gives me great pleasure because we are doing these webinars through BGANZ, Botanic Gardens Australia and New Zealand. It's wonderful to have people from all over the country of Australia and, of course, across the ditch over there in New Zealand. So if you would be so kind as to let us know where are you joining us from? If you can put that into the comments, what country are you joining us from, and whereabouts, which town as well. So that would be fantastic to see where everyone is joining us from. And who better to join us first up than Cass from BGANZ. Cass, lovely to see you. How are you?
Good evening, Costa. I'm very well, thank you.
Fantastic to think that our webinars have come around again. It's May, believe it or not, everyone. Hold on to your seats.
It has come around very fast, absolutely.
So yeah, over to you if you'd like to sort of set things in motion and take it away.
Absolutely. So first, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I am coming to you from, and that is of the Awabakal and the Worimi nations here in Newcastle. I'm lucky enough to live in a place where I have, it is a meeting place of two cultural mobs, and it is a gorgeous place, I think, whereas, you know, we're lucky to learn from those original custodians and ongoing custodians. I'd love to hear from where you guys are from. So yeah, if you please just pop them in the chat. And to those of you in New Zealand, kia ora, thank you for joining us. I know it's quite late over there, so we really appreciate you listening in. As Costa mentioned, Botanic Gardens Australia and New Zealand, BGANZ is who we are commonly referred to, is a network of over 90 botanic gardens from both Australia and New Zealand. And we come together every May to celebrate the incredible value of botanic gardens and the role that they play in our lives. This year's theme is Where Your Health Grows, and it's all about shining the light on the powerful role that botanic gardens play in supporting our physical, mental, and social well-being. And there are activities taking place across the entire month. If you do scan the QR code, which is just behind me, that will take you to the website, and you will see a list of events that is taking place across gardens, both in Australia and New Zealand. It's not comprehensive, so if you don't see your garden on there, please don't feel like that you're missing out. There probably is something happening. We just haven't got it listed yet. It also will show you how you can support us, the network over 90 botanic gardens, through donating, and how, importantly, to enter our Grow Your Health Challenge. This challenge this year is all about encouraging you to experience firsthand the benefits that the gardens provide to your well-being. And there are an incredible array of prizes to be won, so please do check that out. And last but not least, it also talks to you about the Grow Well series, which is what you're here to listen to tonight. This is a series of conversations with experts exploring how botanic gardens support our health and well-being. And tonight's topic, the Growing Well, is all about the wellbeing benefits of volunteering. So the 18th to 24th of May is not just Botanic Gardens Week, but it is also Volunteer Week. And what an apt time to celebrate the incredible people and this undisputable resource that the Botanic Gardens sector has, as do many other sectors. Volunteers are an absolute powerhouse. They provide fundraising capacity and capability. They are on-ground workers out there every day doing activities within the gardens. They're also critical to the education and the outreach programs that Botanic Gardens run. And a number of our regional areas, they manage the entire garden. Everything they do, it's completely volunteer-led. So tonight's episode is really about celebrating all of these incredible people who donate all their time and touching on really the invaluable aspects that this volunteering does have to your own health and well-being. And
fantastic, Kath. Hang on, I'll just
pass
come
it back
back
to
in.
you. So we can start to say and link our speakers tonight.
Well, for the acknowledgement and for the outline of where we're heading tonight, Cass, and looking at some of the comments already, and we've got people joining us from down in Noble Park in Melbourne. We've got Andrew McDonald in WA. Michael Shaper is from East Gosford. We've got Wollongong, Matthew Nicholson, Cheryl Ingram is Noble Park. I think I mentioned that. Oberon in New South Wales. I noticed we've even got Emma Simpkins all the way from Auckland in New Zealand. So lovely to have you joining us, Emma. Kate Heffernan, Gold Coast Botanic Gardens up there. I know Kate. Lovely to have you here. Davey Moore from the Gong. So already there's a great mix of people who have joined. Genevieve Lawless from Tassie. Unreal. So that's a great start. Welcome, everyone. I'll just add, Cass, that I'm actually in Coffs Harbour at the moment. I'm here for the National Waste Conference, which kicks off tomorrow, and I'm on Gumbungia country. So I acknowledge that this is the country that I'm on, and I acknowledge that there's people coming in from all over, and what a great community event these webinars have become. So Cass, thanks for joining us. I'll bring you back in later on in the chat. But first up, as Cass said, our conversation tonight is all about volunteering, and it's common knowledge that our volunteers play such a big role in our botanic gardens, but in our communities, full stop. And to kick things off, we have Mark Pearce from Volunteering Australia, and he's going to talk to us about the benefits of volunteering across the board, not just about your specific activities, but the role that it plays for mental health and community building, particularly in our neck of the woods when it comes to gardens and community growing. So I'll just bring Mark in. Where is he? Here he is. Mark, welcome.
Good evening.
Lovely to have you here. I'll put it over to you to just get started and give us a little bit of a background and tell us sort of what you do and the role of volunteering and how that fits into your organisation and your outlook on the world.
Thanks, Costa, and thanks, Cass, for your acknowledgement of country. I will join with your very kind acknowledgement of country. Acknowledge the fact that I'm in Meanjin, otherwise known as Brisbane, on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. Extend those respects to any Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people who may well be joining us this afternoon or evening, depending upon where you are. Volunteering, I mean, for so many of the people who will be joining us for the next little while, you'll be volunteers, and not just in terms of Botanic Gardens, but perhaps more broadly than that. When I talk about volunteering, and whether it be in public fora or in the media, I often refer to the fact that this thing that we call volunteering, with all of its institutional structures and resourcing and support, has been taking place on this continent for over 60,000 years. We like to talk about it in very formal terms, but it's as simple as, hey mate, do you need a hand with that? It's that in its most intimate form. And of course, it extends broadly across the nation, it extends internationally. We, as the national peak body for volunteering, have a responsibility to ensure that volunteering is acknowledged, it is appropriately resourced, it's well understood by everyone within community, and that volunteers are celebrated for the remarkable work and the contribution that they make to the wellness of our country every day, every week, every month, and every year. And we see that volunteering is a serious part of Australia's national workforce, amongst a whole lot of other things. So if we look at the most recently released data, it tells you that somewhere between 5 and 6 million Australians volunteer their time through organisations each and every year. And it's across every walk of Australian life. Essentially, every community has volunteers. Every part of our lives is involving volunteers in some way, shape or form. As I spend my time in Canberra walking the halls of Parliament far too frequently, I oftentimes have to speak with backbenchers, ministers, assistant ministers, senators, members of the government and opposition about the importance of volunteering, noting, of course, that you wouldn't have election campaigns without necessarily having volunteers on the ground waving signs and handing out how to vote cards. It's part of everyday life within this country. Of course, volunteering speaks profoundly to, I suppose, our connection to community, what we perceive as community, and perhaps really importantly, it touches upon things like, for example, who we are, how we situate ourselves within the communities in which we live, and sometimes they're communities of geography, and sometimes they're communities of interest. And for those joining us this evening, you'll probably fit into one of those two, if not both, that your volunteering takes place both within your geographical location, but also within your area of interest. Volunteering provides opportunities for people to engage in things which are profoundly important to them, in areas that make sense to them, and of course looking towards making tomorrow a better place, and for all of the tomorrows to come. Volunteering provides opportunities for all of that. As I say, in terms of size, it's a really significant part of Australia's national workforce. As I say, 6 million people volunteer through organisations, and when you consider that Australia's paid workforce is about 13.5 million people, it's a big part of what keeps the country going, not just economically. There is a very, very significant contribution that volunteering makes towards the productivity of this country, but perhaps more importantly, and I come from a background of institutional funds management and investment banking, so when I say perhaps more important than economics, that it's something important. Perhaps more important than the economics and the economic contribution is what value volunteering adds to community, whether it be through botanic gardens, whether it be through beautification or other. Volunteering does those things. And as the CEO of Volunteering Australia, I'm particularly proud to lead that part of Australian life.
Interesting what you're saying there, Tony, about what volunteering does beyond that specific activity, and I believe you've undertaken research that shows volunteering is strongly linked with higher life satisfaction, happiness, and better mental health positions. Can you tell us a little bit about, what is it about volunteering that has such a positive impact on our well-being?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something which we've spent a fair bit of time focusing on in terms of research, both within Volunteering Australia and also with some of our research partners. perhaps one of the most salient studies that I can point to, which provides some a point in time rather than an extended period, is to say, when we lived through the COVID-19 period of lockdowns and community disengagement, where a lot of people had to stop going to volunteering effort. In fact, 1 in every 3 volunteers during that period was able to continue volunteering. Two-thirds of volunteers had to stop volunteering altogether. And so for us, that was a remarkable opportunity for us to say, stop everything, let's have a look and see what that meant. How did it impact on individuals? We know how it impacted on community, but what the data showed, and we engaged with the Australian National University in a comprehensive study to try and understand the benefits, or perhaps the lack of benefit associated with not volunteering. And what we found was that for those people who were able to continue to volunteer through that period of community disengagement, their mental well-being was far higher than those who had to stop. And that speaks to a number of different things. It speaks to that point of connection. It speaks to that point of purpose. And perhaps equally importantly, it also talks about our ability to actualize our aspiration for tomorrow. The data, the research that we conducted fits really nicely together with global research, which we engage in. And the global research tells us much the same sort of thing, that when people volunteer, it increases their satisfaction, it increases their engagement, it provides pathways to employment if you're younger, it provides pathways to creation of networks, it creates meaning in people's lives, it enables people to have that glimmer of hope about tomorrow. And gee whiz, as we live through, well, yesterday, today, and probably a little bit of tomorrow, there's good reason for us to feel a little grim from time to time. Volunteering is one of those things that people can point to and say, this is how I can engage in a brighter tomorrow. And I may not be able to do it in work, and I may not be able to do it in other parts of life, but volunteering provides you that opportunity to get engaged in things which make sense to you, which are meaningful to you, and you can see an immediate contribution within the community that's of interest to you.
Is there a particular age that benefits more from volunteering? And if so, why is it such a powerful tool at given stages of life? What has your work and research sort of shown?
Well, as the CEO of Volunteering Australia, I'm going to say every age cohort benefits from volunteering. You would expect me to say nothing less. But of course, again, the data suggests that that's very much the case. If we start at the very young, for those people who are in the youth bracket who volunteer, they volunteer for a number of different reasons, and they are really deeply engaged in community. They volunteer in ways that perhaps aren't the institutional, the formal ways of volunteering, but they volunteer because it creates pathways to employment. It builds networks. It builds confidence. It develops a sense of, how do I get engaged in the working world of tomorrow? So that's the very young. As you get deeper into life, volunteering provides, again, opportunities for you to be able to actualize some of that aspiration, to put the negativity aside and say, here's this thing where I can make a difference. This is an interest to me, and I want to be involved, and I don't really otherwise know how otherwise I can do it. Volunteering provides that pathway. As we get later into life, it's one of those places where we can go to say, we may well be at the end of our working lives. And the sooner that happens, for many, many people, the better it is. But of course, that leaves a lot of time. And it also enables people with a lifetime of skills and expertise and experience to be able to get involved in issues or in geographies of interest to them. Every part of the life cycle is enabled, is bettered by engagement in volunteering.
How do you see volunteering helping the more vulnerable groups within our community, not just from the receiving end, but actually participation and the equality aspect of the interaction and the exchange?
Yeah, I'm so pleased you asked this question. It's a really important question because as we look across our communities, as we look across our nation, this piece around inclusion and active engagement with diversity is such an important piece of our everyday lives. Volunteering provides pathways for people perhaps new to this country, perhaps people who don't have the entry pathways to paid employment or other forms of connection with community. Volunteering provides opportunities for people to utilize their unique skills and bring an enthusiasm to developing and engaging and building community in ways that other parts of community don't necessarily provide. For people who, as I say, newly arrived to the country, we see, and the data supports, that oftentimes people newly arrived to the country get engaged with community organizations and build the networks, build an understanding of culture and bring their own culture to bear within community organizations and strengthen the organizations as a consequence, whether that be recently arrived migrants, people living with a disability, people who are dealing with various forms of abuse. Volunteering is both a pathway and a critical support. And as we look across the care economy, for example, in terms of the provision of support, we know that the care economy relies very, very heavily upon volunteer engagement, volunteer participation, and volunteer expertise. Even within the charity sector, if you look at the recent ACNC data, it tells you that fully around about 10% of Australia's paid workforce is employed by the charity sector. But to a large extent, that's only possible because they are supported by over 3 million volunteers. If the volunteers aren't there, ostensibly, 10% of Australia's paid workforce disappears. Charities disappear. And you can see as a consequence of that, just how critically important volunteering is, not only as a pathway to engagement, a pathway to betterment, a pathway to wellness, but also a critical support structure within our communities throughout the country.
We see and hear about green prescriptions. It's something that I really am enjoying hearing about, doctors actually prescribing time in nature and participation in volunteering. I believe there's also a social prescription where healthcare professionals connect people with community activities instead of relying on medical interventions. Is that, from your perspective at Volunteering Australia, is that common practice? And what role do you see volunteering playing to mental health recovery? And I suppose the most important part here is the preventative well-being going into the future.
Yeah, social prescription is something that we see occur really frequently overseas. The UK has been one of the leaders in terms of social prescription. And as you quite rightly say, Costa, this is where you head along to your local GP and you say, I'm feeling a bit glum, things aren't working out for me, I'm feeling disconnected, perhaps a sense of isolation, I'm feeling a little depressed. I don't feel like I fit in anywhere. I don't have that point of connection within community, and perhaps friends or family aren't as available to you as they were previously. There are lots of points of disconnection, and what we see is that GPs very frequently, where it's appropriate, sometimes in addition to formalized medical support, prescribe volunteering, getting engaged in community. What are the things that interest you? Before you were feeling isolated, what were the things that put a smile on your face? What got you out of bed in the morning? What gave you a little bit of a smile on your face? And by understanding those things where people found some interest, found some joy, found some connection, reduce the isolation, that social prescription where a GP will say, why don't we put you in contact with a local Botanic Gardens, for example, where we know that you have an interest in horticulture, where we know that the natural environment is critically important to you. Let's put you in contact with them. Let's get you started in engaging in some conversations, building that mental resilience. As I say, sometimes it's in addition to formal medical support systems, but sometimes it's on its own, and it has shown remarkable restorative benefits for people who are struggling with some of those conditions of isolation, of depression, of disconnection. Social prescription has been a great success internationally, and it's becoming more and more provided for in Australia. And we are fully supportive of that, as long as there's an appropriate understanding of the condition itself, and where medical intervention is appropriate, that is an addendum to.
So, wow, it's so good to hear this, and to hear how the Botanic Gardens are providing so many aspects of the details that you're drawing on, and that the science is drawing on. So my final question here is one around what about the type of activities that people are doing, and the volume of time that they give? Do either of these things impact the well-being benefits that they're receiving?
Yes, indeed they do. We find it, of course, inevitably, you can't volunteer beyond the time you have available, and it has to fit in with your lifestyle. We see that in a busy world, people's availability is reduced. There are constraints around volunteering, and I can paint a really rosy picture around volunteering, but it has obviously it has some constraints, and it has some barriers. But what we do know, again, what the data speaks to in a really profound way, is that for those people who are able, for those people for whom it makes sense, engaging in volunteering actually builds mental resilience and builds a wellness that doesn't otherwise exist. And that can sit across anything. As I say, volunteering occurs everywhere and all the time, in every community in Australia and in every activity, every part of our lives. Volunteering is involved. As I will oftentimes say to parliamentarians, every Commonwealth department relies to some extent upon the contribution of volunteers in order for the government to be able to meet its constitutional responsibilities. And so it is within community. So whether it be in terms of sustainability, and by the way, 2026 is the United Nations International Year of the Volunteer for Sustainability, speaks in a really significant way to everything that people do within Botanic Gardens and more broadly, whether it be in things like Botanic Gardens, in horticulture, in sustainability, in sport, in the care economy, in religious activities. Every part of Australian community requires volunteers. Every part of Australian community is supported by volunteers. There are opportunities for people to volunteer, as I say, both geographically or by way of interest, in any place or anything that interests you. And as Cass mentioned, next week begins National Volunteer Week. The theme for National Volunteer Week this year, 2026, is it's your year to volunteer. So for those who aren't volunteering, I encourage you to do it. For those who are, thank you. You do a remarkable job. Next week, we will be celebrating your contribution. So thank you again.
Mark, thank you for painting such an extensive coverage of the reach of volunteering and the way in which volunteering is really playing so many important therapeutic and medicinal benefits for people beyond just that physical. And it's kind of a really nice segue. And if I can call you back in a little while after we do our next our chat, I'll get you back as a little bit of a panel, and we're going to put it out to the audience to see how any questions. But Mark, thank you, and I'll bring you back in a few minutes' time.
Thanks so much.
So we're now going to hear from some of the volunteers who do incredible work at Kings Park Botanic Gardens in Perth. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Kathryn Choules, and she's going to share some of her experience as a volunteer guide at Kings Park and Botanic Gardens, and discuss some of the programs that they have going there. So I'll just bring Kathryn in. Kathryn, lovely
G'day.
to have you here on our webinar. How are you?
doing really well here on Wajak Noongar Budja, and grateful for the learning that I've done from the Indigenous custodians of this land. So good to be here with you, Costa, and everybody else that's listening too.
Now, tell us a little bit about, just so people can get a feel, how did you get involved? Was it through a friend? What was the onboarding that made you become or got you involved with volunteering?
I've been a volunteer for many, many, many years. In Kings Park, I've been a volunteer for 7 or 8 years, first as a friend of Kings Park, growing friend in the nursery, but more recently in the last 2.5 years in the Voluntary Guide Association. And my interest in getting involved in Kings Park in a volunteer capacity was because of my concern that we are living lives so disconnected from nature. And over time, I've been looking for different ways to actually know the inhabitants of the place that I live. And by inhabitants, I'm talking about the inhabitants that can't move. I'm talking about the ones that fly. I'm talking about the ones that crawl, all of the inhabitants. Like, I felt really ignorant about my place, my country that I was living in. And so I've been looking for a variety of ways to increase my understanding and connection and know this place better, and the people I share it with, people in inverted commas.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit from your lens, what exactly does a guide do, and how does someone, become involved and trained to become a guide? What's behind the scenes?
Sure. At Kings Park, the volunteer guides primarily do 2 key roles. The first role is that we provide 2 free walks to the public every day apart from Christmas Day. So there's a guide that will take you on a free guided walk through the Botanic Gardens every day at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock. We also staff the Visitors Information Centre, and there's a wide range of information that people are looking for, not only where's the nearest toilet, but also, where can I find an Anigoxanthus manglesii, or, those kinds of things. So they go from the very mundane to the very sophisticated. So we're in the Visitors Information Centre and we're out there guiding. And then there are also a variety of other walks other than the regular walks that we do at different times of the year with different themes, to respond to the changing seasons and the changing interests that people have of coming into the park and connecting with the park and what happens there.
Treading softly, mindfully meeting in Kings Park. What's the background of this participation, this program?
You've touched on my heart there, Costa.
Great.
For me, it brings together 2 things that are really important to me: connecting with nature and mindfulness or meditation. My last work was as a mindfulness facilitator. In 2013, I trained at the University of Massachusetts as a mindfulness facilitator, as a way of making my long-term meditation practice now my work. When I came into work as a volunteer in Kings Park, in applying to become a guide, in that process of the interview, they ask you all sorts of things. And I shared with the interviewers who were selecting people to become the new set of guides and do the training, which I forgot to mention, 3 months significant training before you become a guide, and then a 3-month probation period. But they asked me about what I do in Kings Park. What's my connection? What's my knowledge? And I mentioned to them that most Friday mornings I'll come up with a very good friend. We spend time together. We have a chat, and then we go by ourselves out into the bushland mostly, and just hang out with a little patch of nature. We spend time, we come back, share that time. And I mentioned that I'd been a mindfulness teacher. And so about a year ago, that person said to me, why aren't you doing something with mindfulness in Kings Park? That gave me the green light to go ahead and work with the organisation. There's a whole heap of formalities about creating new walks. But I'm really delighted now to be running what we call Treading Softly, Mindfully Meeting Nature in Kings Park. And it invites people into the park, into a connection with nature, into a way of being in nature that is different to how we often are, where we'll have a podcast in our ears, we'll be running the dog, we'll be talking to a friend. And instead it asks us to actually be as fully present as we can in our bodies, in our hearts, in our minds, with this amazing place that we are. So it's a very different kind of walk to the standard walks, which are fantastic. We give people lots of information, show them lots of really interesting things, but this walk is my heart work.
And on this walk, you know, like you say, you do the other walks where you're talking about the plants and the botanical names and the flowers and all of that. But what have you seen change in participants over the course of such a walk, emotionally, socially, mentally? You know, what feedback do people most commonly share, you know, after doing this more mindful approach?
And maybe just to let people know that most of the time they get a little bit of an introduction into how we'll be in the space, and then we walk slowly and silently from a beautiful part in the Botanic Gardens with big trees, beautiful view, through the bushland, each person having their own experience, not socializing. We come up to a beautiful old peppermint tree. We sit under that tree. We meditate together. People then go off and have a little bit of time together. Then they come back under the peppermint tree and they're invited to share that experience. We then walk slowly and silently back to the beginning. And again, they're invited to share that experience. So I do get the opportunity to hear people's experience. And there's a consistent theme of gratitude, of wonder, of awe at times. People are touched in different ways by different things that they experience. The last walk I did, one of the guys came back and said, I was sitting on this log looking at a pile of leaf litter, and I was thinking that used to be a tree. And everything around me is growing and dying, and so am I. And there's nothing special about me, and I'm special. It was such a joy, he said, to feel part of that cycle of life, to feel part of the web of life, to feel insignificant and yet connected, important. That's just an example. That's really profound things that people touch.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you're offering this incredible stage for people to slow down, and it's only when they have that invitation and almost the permission to slow down and, you know, not be sort of doing these ones or not be doing those ones, actually seeing that there's there's a whole life activity taking place if we take the moment to tune into that channel, which you're giving them the opportunity to. And it's probably, I got one more question that I'd like to ask you, but I might bring Tony and Gillian in, who are also guides, your other colleagues, and then we can have a bit of a yarn about this more specific impact that this has. So if you happy to stay in while they're here.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kathryn. So I'll get Tony. and Gillian. Hello, Tony. Hi, Gillian.
Hi,
Hello.
Costa, and hi to everyone.
Thank you both for being here. So you're volunteers at Kings Park Botanic Garden. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do, how you spend your time in the gardens when you're volunteering?
Gillian, do you want to go first?
I can go first if you like. Yeah. I'm part of Garden Carers. We're a smallish team, and we look after all aspects of the park. Our park is huge, 18 hectares of which is the Botanic Park, so we start looking after that. I call my team Master Weeders. Seems to be every week. That's exactly what we do. We know exactly which weed is in which part of the park. But our team is quite eclectic in the mix of people from all walks of life. They're all coming together for a bit of grounding, I suppose. Obviously, you know, volunteering in the park, Kings Park's got a lot to offer to so many people, and I think there's an iconic connection to this space in Perth, and the opportunity to just get in there and see something happening every week, changes in the park, in the wildlife, you know, everything that Mark has said earlier is so pertinent to, I think, why all of us have volunteered.
Tony, what?
Yes,
what's
I'm like Gillian. I'm involved with one of the garden carer groups, but on a different day to Gillian, and she's covered a fair bit of ground about what we do. But I would just add that I believe our role is very important in supporting the garden staff in Kings Park, who are always under a lot of pressure to keep the park looking fantastic. But I'm also involved with the Growing Friends, and that's very special to me because the last 40 years of my working life I spent inside behind a desk in front of a computer, in spite of the fact that I do have a qualification in horticulture. So it's nice to get back to that, and I guess that was the impetus for me to volunteer up at Kings Park. But the Growing Friends play a very important role in the sense that we grow a lot of unique Western Australia flora for sale to get it out there into the community, and those funds help to support the objectives of the Kings Park volunteers.
Gillian, what is it that keeps you volunteering and keeps you coming back?
My family background's in gardening. When it was a time to decide I wanted to volunteer, it was either, you know, the Attenborough effect and go be a docent at the zoo, or Kings Park. And my family are all gardeners, master gardeners, estate gardeners in Scotland. So Kings Park won out there. And the connection through my family to gardening is enormous. So that has a large part of why we decided to go with this role. But, you know, the group of people that come in, diverse, working can where they've come from with their work. Now cultures even, they've come together, and they just are an amazing group of people each week. And the work that they're putting in, commitment, hours, is just amazing. It's so good to get this, as I said before, it's like a grounding. It's so important to just get into nature every week. People are stuck in offices, they've left that job, they realise how very important it is to get outside. A couple of the new people are stuck in apartments. and they have zero opportunity for any growing. So volunteering in this method means a bit of both worlds.
And it's interesting because both you and Tony shared, Tony from his garden and horticultural background, like this connection. And it's lovely to hear from the three of you in the sense that you both are volunteering, and then Kathryn is a guide. Like, Kathryn, what have you personally gained from this experience of being a guide, and how can you share with everyone listening what it is that's really captured you and keeps you coming back? Oh, hang on, Kathryn.
Me.
That's
better.
There you go. Go again. Yeah.
Thank you. I find particularly with the new walk, the treading softly, mindfully meeting nature in Kings Park, just hearing the ways that people have been touched by the experience and hearing how it's nourished them nourishes me. Mark previously was talking about social benefits of volunteering. We're all empathetic, compassionate beings if we let ourselves be, and being touched by others' experience is something very beautiful. So I feel grateful to have been part of an experience where they have reconnected with a desire to spend more time in nature, to feel that connection, to be making commitments to build that into their week. So it's a very nourishing and satisfying process for me to do that.
It's interesting to the three of you. We don't fully, like, from an accounting point of view, we've never grasped or been able to put a value on what this means. But I think what Mark was talking about earlier, and with the nature prescriptions and this ongoing science work that's physically starting to put a value on these things within the framework of our kind of guardrailed society, it makes you realise that that concept, it's just volunteer time. That's shifting, and Mark mentioned it, because no, this is a true value, and your lives are better for what you're doing. And if you were to put a financial value on it, it's very hard, isn't it? Because it's almost, in some senses, priceless. But when we talk about it in terms of the outcomes, it is important that we do put some values on it, so that it isn't just disregarded and kind of said, oh, that's just volunteering and someone holds the hose sort of thing. It's like, your words, your experiences, hearing them firsthand, Kathryn, and Tony and Jill, it puts in front of people that this has a high priority, which is a high value in your life.
And not just in our lives, I'd say, Costa, I'd say the ripple effect of what we do in the park touches ever-growing circles of people. So, yeah, absolutely for us. And it touches lots of others as well.
That's right, because you get so many people will stop you when they see volunteer signs, and they'll say, oh, volunteers, and it just engages a whole new conversation with them. And, we sort of put a little seed in their mind that might be an, opportunity for them to join us or join any volunteering opportunity.
Tony, how do you feel like that interaction side with people when your experiences are exchanged and bundled into a story? How does that feel for you when you see the impact that people's time in the gardens has? on
Yeah,
them?
well, I mean, to me, it's a momentary exit from urban living into the that tranquil environment that is Kings Park and the wonderful special flora that we have in WA. In spite of the fact that the garden carers, working with the garden carers, we basically do a lot of weeding, but I get to understand the plants and I understand how they grow and how they grow together. And I also get a lot of that opportunity to propagate those plants in the nursery. And I find that it's a great inspiration for me, for my own garden. And about 3 years ago, I changed houses and I had a blank canvas. So I've been able to work on those concepts to build my own garden. And I get a lot of comment from the neighbours about what I grow. And hopefully they are inspired by it too.
I just was reading Cheryl's comment here about you can't put a dollar value. It's the satisfaction of helping others. Exactly. I totally agree with that, Cheryl. But I suppose what I was getting at and what is changing here is that there is a recognition of this within the framework of our economic side of life to say, yeah, it isn't just something that we just go, oh, thank you and happy clappy. As Tony said, and it's probably sorry, not Tony, as Mark said, it's a good point to get Mark back in. Mark, you know, it's an interesting thing, isn't it, when you think about the amount of time, the hours that people put in to be in discussions, as you said, in Canberra and with organisations and so on. I'm not getting stuck on this point, but I'm sure you must manage that concept of valuing this in another level, don't you?
Yeah, and this is a really fascinating point, I suppose, with respect to volunteering engagement, participation, and of course the policy piece at a Commonwealth level is that we can take the path of looking at economic value and economic contribution, and that varies really widely because is it, any of these wonderful people, Kathryn, Tony, Gillian, who volunteer within the Botanic Gardens in WA, is it that? Is it a director on a board? Who is it? And you get different valuations. We can get hung up on economic value. And again, given my past, I like to talk about economic value. And it can be anything. I mean, I saw a piece which spoke to an economic contribution to Australia's productivity of somewhere around about $250 billion a year in terms of volunteer contribution to our economy. But I think the economic contribution piece misses something important and misses something profound. And I think that was mentioned earlier, that you can't put a price on the satisfaction. You can't put a price on engagement, contribution, and participation in something which makes sense and meaning to you. Meaning doesn't have a dollar value. It has a value which is beyond the estimation of dollars, and that makes it a difficult piece, almost intangible but profoundly tangible when you're talking to policymakers about supporting volunteering.
Yeah. So I've got a question here that's come up. What would you say to someone who's thinking about volunteering or to encourage someone to start volunteering at their local botanic gardens? Is there anything either of you would?
Well, as far as Kings Park is concerned, you just go online and you fill out the form and whatever particular interest you might have in terms of the park, because there's a whole range of groups that you can participate in, and come and experience it.
Oh, there you go, everyone. For those of you in WA, Tony's put it very, very simple. Get online, fill out a form, work out which. So what are some of the groups that people can be involved in?
Well, there's the garden carers, there's bushland carers. What are some of the others, Kathryn, Gillian?
Growing Friends.
Growing Friends, yes, of
There's
course.
the Honour Avenue groups. There was a Climate Watch group.
There's the conservation group as well,
Yep.
Yes.
BCC.
I think there's a couple of new ones, that the Transition Garden group.
Yes.
Working on some of the new gardens, so yeah.
And one of the exciting things about Kings Park is all of their cutting edge conservation and research. So even if you do spend most of your time weeding, you do have these incidental conversations with people who really love what they're doing, the staff up there, and it's just ongoing learning about our place and what's happening in the conservation area as well, I find.
Yeah, well said.
What do you think are some of the most important things a botanic garden can do to ensure and drive a higher volunteer experience?
Look, I might jump in there, again, bringing a bit of a policy lens to it. So the National Strategy for Volunteering and its attendant action plan speak to the fact that in order to engage volunteers, you need to ensure that you improve, you maximize the volunteer experience. So that's ensuring that the conversation that a Botanic Garden organisation has with potential volunteers is one about alignment. It's about understanding the motivation of the volunteer. It's about clearly describing the types of activities that a volunteer will undertake, how they will see themselves connected with that organisation and its mission, and then being able to see each and every time how the time, the effort, the experience and the excitement that they bring contributes to the mission of the Botanic Garden itself. Those things are really simple ways, but powerful ways of ensuring that your recruitment is better, your retention is better, and ultimately all of those things come back to ensuring that the volunteer experience is as good as it can be.
I had an experience the other day, a young girl, as Gillian alluded to earlier, that when they see the signs out in the garden in the particular area we're working, it lets them know that volunteers are at work. So one young girl was very interested in the idea. She took a photo of the sign. She thought it was something that she would love to do. So I had a brief conversation with her and again, explained, go online and you get all the details. But perhaps the parks can promote that within the park more. There's hundreds of people go up to Kings Park, and it's probably the same in many other botanical gardens. Perhaps they can visibly promote the idea of volunteering, and maybe more people might be interested.
Yes, the more volunteers we have, the more ambassadors we have for the parks. And I find with, especially with our group, the volunteering gives you an absolute sense of ownership of the park because you're valued, and whatever hours you can put towards it is important. And I think that's quite special.
Absolutely, and it's you volunteer whatever time you can give. It's not onerous. It's not lengthy amounts of time. It's whatever you can contribute.
Fantastic. There's that sort of covered off on most of my questions. We've got one here. Hi, I'm the volunteer coordinator at Kings Park, Inga Thompson. We have lots of opportunities for volunteers. Contact me via the website. Good on you, Inga. Thanks for jumping on. I'm sure you all know her. Yeah, look, while we're here, I'll just bring Cass back. It's been a fantastic conversation. 1 hour has naturally just disappeared and vaporized. The 6 wellbeing prescriptions. Okay, so Cass, do you want to? I'll bring Cass on, and she's going to talk to us about the challenge. Here we go, Cass. Tell us a little bit about the challenge that's taking place this month.
Absolutely. So the Grow Your Health Challenge is all about you experiencing the wellbeing benefits that you just heard about from all of our fabulous speakers. And so it is about encouraging you to go to your local botanic garden and to pause, to stop, to reflect, to take some time out. We have 6 wellbeing prescriptions. They're all a bit of fun, but it is about trying to get yourself, as I just said, to really have a mindful moment whilst you're in nature. And as we heard just from Kathryn, how important that is. So you can jump onto the website, as I mentioned, and the 6 prescriptions are there. Just very quickly, we've got the 20-minute reset, which is about you taking 20-minute walk through the garden with no phones and not rushing. So it's not a race around the gardens. It is about going slow. The mindful moment, which is about pausing for 5 minutes and then listening, hearing and feeling the things. So using your senses within that time. Moving your own way. So maybe this is taking a jog or doing some yoga under the tree. We've got Connect and Belong, which is about talking, starting up a conversation in the garden. So whether that be with somebody you are with or whether that be with a stranger. And then the colour hunt, which is a fun one where you get to choose one colour and then find as many different shades as possible as you can. And then finally, the important one, Volunteer Connect, which is about seeking out a volunteer within the Botanic Gardens and starting up a conversation with them, having a chat to them about what volunteering is and hearing directly, like we just have tonight, of all the incredible experiences you can have. So, yeah, I was just going to say, it's a lot of fun. There are prizes to be won with that as well. So, we are really hoping that you get in it for yourself, but also, win a prize.
That's fantastic. I think it's such a wonderful thing to see this level of approach, this slowing down, this mindfulness, like putting your nature goggles on. We know that we are nature. Our connection with nature needs that time, and so much of what we have around us these days is trying to take our attention from the intention. And Cass, what I love about the challenge is it's saying, hang on, let's put our intention, and really Tony and Gillian and Kathryn, you really did all share that idea that, you're going along as volunteers with intention. You're putting your attention, you're controlling your attention and putting it out as an intention. I want to do this. And this challenge, Cass, I think sums it up beautifully, because it's saying, yes, I'm going to go here, I'm going to put my intention and full attention there, and not allow my attention to be taken away by the usual speed and chaos that is the digital so-called connected world, which is disconnected from the natural world. So I just love the fact, and equally, Mark, everything that you've spoken about is that intention, that intention to be a volunteer, and the benefits will come beyond the perceived ones and the publicly recognised ones. Would any of you like to leave a final comment each? Just
well, just about what you spoke to as a little byproduct. I lost a little bit of weight now that I'm more active in the garden.
That's fantastic.
My final point. You go, Gillian.
Oh, sorry, Costa. Our group took a leaf out of your book, and we do a walk the garden at each other's homes. So we have a sense of community, and we keep it outside the park as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I mean, I think what you're doing there, Gillian, is that's as hyper local as it gets. That's having a little open garden without, all the palaver, yet all the benefits of the interactions, the observations, the nature immersion, and the the volunteering and sharing of your time. Wow, that's great, Gillian.
And I was
Kathryn?
just going to add a little twist to Cassandra's 6 wellbeing prescriptions, where it says start a conversation in the garden. I'd say that conversation could be with something that crawls or flies or waves in the wind, or has beautiful flowers. Might be a bit of a different conversation than the one you'd have with the volunteer, but thinking about that connection, building that connection with the plants, with the animals, with the things that are vital to our well-being. So we can talk to them as well.
Yeah. Love it.
And
I might add very quickly, if I may, that certainly for us, volunteering is at the heart of Australian communities. Taking the opportunity intentionally, as you say, Costa, to engage within your community is something which brings really profound benefits to the individual themselves, to the volunteer, and to the communities in which you engage. And so I would say, as we approach National Volunteer Week, it's your year to volunteer. Get out there and volunteer.
fantastic. Cass, before I throw to you, you know what happened when I turned my computer on the Savo before, like, getting ready for the webinar. You know, when you get that kind of, I don't know, it's one of the search engines and they always have news and, you know, a whole lot of palaver on there. But anyway, this was what was on there, and I just think it's so random. It says, it was a quote, and couldn't have been more appropriate. It says, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help someone else.
Mm.
And I just thought, Mark and the volunteers, you're helping someone else. And Kathryn, I love the way you said that we're not just helping the human, we're helping all the kith and kin, like the animals, the birds, the plant life, the creeks and the rivers. And it went on. I kind of followed this proverb down, and it just kept going and going. And I was like, oh, how much of it should I read? And I thought, you know, this part of the proverb says that helping others creates a ripple effect through a community. When you provide assistance, you often inspire that person to help someone else in the future, which is exactly what all 4 or all 5 of you have been doing tonight. This creates a network of support that keeps the spirit of the giver alive. Focusing on a lifetime of happiness through service ensures that your personal peace is tied to something much larger and more durable than your own individual circumstances. It comes from the consistent choice to be useful to others in small ways by looking for opportunities to assist. And this steady commitment ensures that your sense of joy does not depend on external events like winning a fortune, or it's a life built on the foundation of helping people remain stable and bright regardless of the challenges. And when people perform acts of kindness, their brains release oxytocin and dopamine. These chemicals reduce stress and increase well-being feelings. It's sometimes called the helper's high. Generous behavior, that is what you were talking about, Mark. Generous behavior lowers blood pressure and improves heart health. Therefore, the proverb is not just a moral suggestion, it's a practical guide for physical and mental health. By focusing on the needs of the community, an individual actually improves their own biological state. Altruism serves as a natural tool for longevity and peace. So how's that? That just came into my being moments before we kicked this talk off. So I just thought I'd share that because it kind of captured me. Cass, would you have any final thoughts?
Big thank you to everybody for joining us tonight, and obviously for all of our speakers for sharing your insights. I'll sum up that proverb in 3 words, Costa. I'll say giving is receiving. I think I love that. That was absolutely perfect. You know, it really is a beautiful way to end this. And I think I need to say much more. We've really explored how incredible that is. The one thing I will just say is obviously this is part 2 of a 4-part series. So coming up next Monday, we will be releasing, so it won't be live, but we will be releasing a webinar which is called Reframing Care, and it's the design of gardens for wellbeing. So this is exploring more of that intent that we've been talking about. So, you know, it's not just a park with trees. There's actually more to it, and there's reasons for that really benefit our well-being as a community. So please join us and listen into that one, and then we'll have another one the following Monday as well. Yeah, and get out there, experience it. You know, join your local Botanic Gardens volunteer group or any volunteer group, but please visit your your Botanic Garden throughout May. And support us. That would be excellent.
Well, thank you, Cass, and once again, thanks to all the viewers who came on and have watched us live, and also a big thank you to anyone who is watching the replay equally. Tony, Gillian, Kathryn, big thanks to the 3 of you and for all the work you do to bring the Botanic Gardens alive to people. And Mark, for, of course, all the work you do with Volunteering Australia, and Cass for all the work at BGANZ. Look forward to the next webinar next week, and the week after, and the week after that. So we've got 4 all up as we head towards Botanic Gardens Week. So have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Bye for now.
See you.